Highlights related to tensions in Europe, along with many new developments around the world, will be presented to you on today's program. Nazariy Kishak, commander of the machine gun unit with the 72nd Separate Mechanized Brigade, said Sunday on national television. The eastern Ukrainian city of Volodar has been completely razed to the ground as heavy shelling by Russian forces is ongoing in the area. The enemy continues to use multiple rocket launchers and shelling not only the immediate front line and Volodar but also the surrounding areas, he said. The enemy is constantly shelling all settlements with large-caliber weapons. Volodar has been completely razed to the ground. Everything is burnt out, the city is almost empty. There are a few civilians who help the military. The police have taken away the rest of the people, civilians are living wherever they can, even in the corridors, hiding from the shelling, he said. People are in a very exhausted emotional state of despair. We are trying to support them, we communicate with them. People have been left without a thing but they still help us, the military. When asked if there are signs of exhaustion among the Russian forces, Kishak said Russian forces did suffer heavy losses, but Russia has lots of reserves. Everyone is exhausted but we have to hold on and defend our country. We are the infantry who must stand until the end, not leaving a single meter of our land. The brigade is standing strong and Ukraine has no reason to worry about the Volodar direction, he said. But the Bakhmut direction is really difficult. Which is why a very strong commander is there now. Heavy fighting is ongoing there are dead and wounded every hour. Our task as Ukrainians is to pray and believe, and then it's up to God. We have got to win on our land, he said. A Ukraine army drone showed the embattled eastern town of Bakhmut in ruins as Commander-in-Chief General Valery Zaluzhny said the situation there stabilized. Kiev's forces thwarted Moscow's offensive in and around the city. Russia identifies Bakhmut as a key target for it to move towards complete control of Ukraine's Donbas industrial region. At one point Russian commanders expressed confidence the city would fall soon, but such claims have tailed off amid heavy fighting. Zaluzhny said in a post on Telegram after a conversation with British counterpart Tony Radakin. The Bakhmut direction is the most difficult. Thanks to the titanic efforts of the defense forces, the situation is being stabilized, Serhiy Cherevatiy, who represents the eastern grouping of the Ukrainian armed forces, shared the update on national television. He was asked to clarify remarks by the commander-in-chief of Ukraine's military. Stabilizing the situation means that we see and control the enemy's actions, Cherevatiy said. We understand the direction of the enemy's actions. We understand the enemy's plans. We know our forces and the means we rely on. We know we have enough forces to hold the front line. And we know how we can strike at the enemy in order to bleed the enemy to the maximum, to weaken the enemy and to bring down his offensive potential. Meanwhile, the Russian onslaught is fierce, with dense shelling and a total of 268 attacks in the Bakhmut sector over the last 24 hours according to Ukraine's military. Cherevatiy said Russia made 94 attacks in Bakhmut alone. The Kiev regime tried to stage a drone attack in Russia's Tula region but the Ukrainian drone was disabled by Russian electronic warfare means, the Russian Defense Ministry said on Sunday. On March 26, 2023, the Kiev regime tried to stage an attack with the use of a Stryz-type Tu-141 unmanned aerial vehicle in its assault modification, the ministry said. According to the ministry, air defense systems, including S-300, Panzer S-1 and Pol-21 electronic warfare systems deployed in the Tula region ensure safe protection of this direction. The Pol-21 electronic warfare system disabled the navigation system of the Ukrainian UAV, causing it to lose its direction and fall near the city of Kryvsk. In the Tula region, there were 3 apartment blocks, 4 houses damaged harmful, the Moscow side announced. Asked about Russian President Vladimir Putin's pledge to put tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus, National Security Council Strategic Communications Coordinator John Kirby said Sunday, "We're just going to have to watch and see where this one goes." Kirby told Margaret Brennan on CBS Face the Nation. "We have not seen any indication that he's made good on this pledge, or moved any nuclear weapons around." Putin made the remarks about his plans for tactical nuclear weapons in neighboring Belarus to state television Saturday. Putin added his forces would retain control over any of the weapons it stationed there. CNN commented, Clearly, the US downplayed the danger of the situation, saying that there is no indication that Russia is planning to use nuclear weapons. NATO on Sunday criticized Vladimir Putin for what it called his dangerous and irresponsible nuclear rhetoric a day after the Russian president said he planned to station tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus. Putin likened the move on Saturday to the US stationing its weapons in Europe, while insisting that Russia would not violate its nuclear non-proliferation promises. In response, NATO said that the above assessment and promise of the Kremlin boss was completely wrong. NATO spokesperson Ona Lungescu said in emailed comments to Reuters on Sunday. Russia's reference to NATO's nuclear sharing is totally misleading. NATO allies act with full respect of their international commitments. Russia has consistently broken its arms control commitments. A top security advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Alexei Danilov, said Russia's plan would also destabilize Belarus, which he said had been taken hostage by Moscow. Experts said Russia's move was significant since it had until now been proud that unlike the United States it did not deploy nuclear weapons outside its borders. It may be the first time since the mid-1990s that it has done so. Mikhailo Podolyak, another senior Zelensky advisor, on Sunday scoffed at Putin's plan on Twitter. He admits that he is afraid of losing and all he can do is scare with tactics, Podolyak wrote. NATO said the news would not affect their own nuclear position. NATO spokesperson Lungescu wrote, "We have not seen any changes in Russia's nuclear posture that would lead us to adjust our own," ex-foreign minister of former Yugoslavia Zvidan Jovanovic told TASS on Sunday. The deployment of Russian tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus can be seen as a response to the actions of countries of the collective West. I think that the agreement on the deployment of Russian nuclear weapons in Belarus is a very serious response. It is a response to the escalation and the direct influence by NATO countries into the conflict in Ukraine, to the reckless actions to add fuel to the fire by means of advanced weapons, intermediate-range missiles, tanks, warplanes, and other offensive weapons for targeting Russia's territory. The agreement between Russia and Belarus followed the statement that the United Kingdom and some other NATO countries plan to supply Kyiv with shells with depleted uranium, which can be interpreted as the beginning of the use of nuclear weapons against Russian troops and Russia. NATO's propaganda is seeking to underplay the danger of such weapons, which, as a matter of fact, are weapons of mass destruction, he said. The stress that the use of such shells in 1995 and 1999 had caused the growth of cancer incidents in former Yugoslavia. If these shells are harmless, then why is their use banned in NATO, EU, member countries? Jovanovic noted. According to the former top Yugoslav diplomat, the collective West has deployed large bases with nuclear weapons in at least 5 countries, namely Germany, the United Kingdom, Italy, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Poland and Romania have missile defense systems capable of using nuclear warheads. Moreover, those countries, which don't have nuclear weapons so far, allocate huge sums to buy advanced U.S. bombers capable of carrying nuclear weapons. Germany has allocated an extra sum of €100 billion to purchase American F-16A bombers. Last but not least, the doctrine of the preemptive use of nuclear weapons is related to the collective West, he stressed. Moscow has already transferred to Minsk an Iskander system that can use nuclear weapons. According to the Russian leader, the construction of a depot for tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus is expected to be completed on July 1. Ukraine's foreign ministry said in a statement Sunday. Russian President Vladimir Putin's statements about his intentions to deploy tactical nuclear weapons to Belarus are yet another provocative step that undermines nuclear disarmament efforts and the international security system as a whole, despite the horrific crimes against humanity and war crimes that the Kremlin is committing in this war of aggression against a sovereign state. Russia is demonstrating its inability to win on the battlefield, the ministry said. Ukraine appeals to the Belarusian society to prevent implementing criminal intentions of deploying nuclear weapons in Belarus in violation of its obligations under the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, which will further turn the country into a Kremlin hostage and cause catastrophic consequences for its future, it said. Kyiv also appealed to the Group of Seven, G7, alliance and the European Union to warn Belarus authorities of the long-term consequences should they accept the weapons on their territory. Ukraine is expecting the United Kingdom, China, the United States and France, which as permanent members of the UN Security Council have a particular responsibility to prevent threats of aggression using nuclear weapons, to act to counter the Kremlin. We demand that an extraordinary meeting of the UN Security Council be immediately convened for this purpose. Ukraine calls on all members of the international community to convey the utmost unacceptability of the latest nuclear provocations by Putin's regime. Russia has once again proven its persistent inability to be a responsible holder of nuclear weapons for the purpose of deterring and preventing war rather than a tool of threats and intimidation. The world must unite against those who threaten the future of human civilization, the ministry said. UN nuclear watchdog chief Rafael Grossi and his IAEA team departed Vienna on Sunday, March 26, to head to the Russian-held Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine. Russia took control of the facility at the initial stage of launching a special military operation. Grossi is pressing for a security zone to be erected around what is Europe's largest nuclear power plant, with 6 reactors, which has come under repeated shelling over the past months. Grossi said in a Twitter post on Sunday. On my way to #Zaporizhzhia NNP to assess firsthand the #nuclear safety and security situation at the facility. It will be his second visit. Last September, he went there and established a permanent presence of IAEA experts. Earlier this month, he appealed for the protection zone around the plant to be set up, saying he was astonished by the complacency around the issue. The plant accounted for around 20% of Ukraine's national power generation before the invasion, but has not produced any electricity since September when the last of its 6 reactors was taken offline. North Korea fired 2 ballistic missiles into the sea off its east coast on Monday morning, South Korea's military said, the latest in a series of launches amid military drills by the U.S. and South Korea. Japan's Coast Guard said 2 projectiles believed to be North Korea-fired missiles fell in waters that were most likely landed outside Japan's exclusive economic zone, according to Japanese media. The North Korean missiles flew to an altitude of 50 kilometers and covered a range of 350 kilometers, Japanese broadcaster NHK said. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida ordered officials to gather and analyze information over the launch and ensure the safety of aircraft and vessels, his office said. The launch is the latest in a series of weapons tests by the North, including the firing of multiple cruise missiles on Wednesday that Pyongyang said was aimed at practicing tactical nuclear attacks. Pyongyang has long bristled at the Allies' drills, saying they are preparation for an invasion of the North. South Korea and the United States say the exercises are defensive. Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Qin Gang on Sunday in Beijing said China appreciates Honduras' position on severing the so-called diplomatic relations with the Taiwan authorities. The Honduran Foreign Ministry announced on Saturday that Honduras is severing the so-called diplomatic relations with the Taiwan authorities. On Sunday, Qin held talks with Foreign Minister of Honduras Eduardo Reyna in Beijing. The 2 sides signed the joint communiqué on the establishment of diplomatic relations between the People's Republic of China and the Republic of Honduras. The government of the People's Republic of China is the sole legal government representing the whole of China, and Taiwan is an inalienable part of the Chinese territory. The Republic of Honduras severs its so-called diplomatic relations with Taiwan as of this day and undertakes not to have any further official relations or exchanges with Taiwan. The government of the People's Republic of China appreciates the above position of the government of the Republic of Honduras, said Qin. Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen said in a video statement on Sunday, March 26, Taiwan's people have proved to the world that we never cower from threats. Taiwan's cooperation and links with allies and like-minded countries to jointly promote international well-being and security will only increase, not decrease, she said, adding that China's military and diplomatic pressure on Taiwan has increased in recent years. The female leader affirmed that Taiwan will not participate in the race of dollar diplomacy competing with mainland China. It is known that the Western press has repeatedly mentioned China's dollar diplomacy or currency diplomacy, the way Beijing uses billions of dollars worth of investment and commercial contracts to cooperate with developing countries to strengthen their influence and at the same time approach and make international friends. Earlier in the day, Honduras and Taiwan severed diplomatic ties which started in the 1940s. The Honduran Foreign Ministry said it recognized the People's Republic of China as the only legitimate government that represents all of China and that Taiwan is an inseparable part of Chinese territory. Taiwan now only has formal diplomatic relations with 13 countries, mostly poor and developing countries in Central America, the Caribbean and the Pacific. Mass protests erupted across Israel and in Jerusalem on Sunday, March 26, shortly after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced he dismissed Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Gallant's dismissal was announced a day after he broke ranks with the government and urged a halt to a highly contested plan to overhaul the judicial system. As news of the dismissal spread, thousands of protesters, many waving blue and white Israeli flags, took to the streets in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. In Tel Aviv, protesters flocked to the central Israeli main highway Ayalon, blocking traffic for hours and setting up bonfires along the multi-lane road on both directions. In Jerusalem, crowds gathered outside Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem, at one point breaching a security cordon. Some 3 months since taking office, Netanyahu's nationalist religious coalition has been plunged into crisis over the bitter divisions exposed by its flagship judicial overhaul plans. Opposition leaders Yair Lapid and Benny Gantz said in a joint statement, "State security cannot be a card in the political game.